Hello everyone, welcome back to Down Periscope, Up Periscope. I'm Tim, your host. Now, when visitors come aboard the submarine, they detect a certain miasma, you might say. And kids often ask, what's that smell? Well, the simple answer is, that is the smell of a submarine. More to the point, Blueback, being a diesel-electric submarine, has a lot of things on board that cause odors. What you're smelling when you come aboard is things like the 112,000 gallons of diesel fuel, the various tobacco products that are being smoked, and most of the crew smoked on board. Yes, even when the submarine was underwater. It's the body odor from 85 crew members, because the crew hardly showered, when they could even use the shower, that is. It's the food, the cooking, the oils, lubricants, hydraulic fluid, the various tanks, the bilge, everything on the submarine. That is what is creating that smell. It is actually a fairly familiar scent to any sailor out there, regardless of whether you're a surface sailor or a sub-sailor. Sailors come aboard Blueback for a tour and they're like, yep, smells like my ship. So yeah, it's a classic smell of a submarine. It's 31 years worth of submarine, and we will never get rid of that smell. It has permeated everything, down to like the molecular level. It is on everything, it gets into your clothes, but yeah, that's what it is. It's a combination of all those scents. Now, Blueback, being a diesel-electric boat, is about one generation removed from like a World War II submarine. There is a air filtration system on the submarine using carbon air filters, but after a while, they just don't work that well. They do okay with like filtering out like the oil from the cooking along with some of the cigarette smoke, but it does nothing for the funk of the smell. So it just stinks, plain and simple. Although those of us who have worked on board long enough, we just don't smell it anymore. Now, kind of case in point, for some comparison, I was recently contacted by one of the staff members working on USS Requin, a museum submarine out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And they actually asked me, does Blueback have that submarine smell? I'm like, oh yes, I assure you, she does. Yep, it's classic. I talked with another volunteer at OMSI who served aboard a Vallejo-class submarine, a fleet boat, USS Redfish, although post-World War II, and asked him, how does Blueback smell compared to Redfish? And he's like, Redfish smelled worse. From what he told me, Redfish was one of those fleet boats that was never marked for like a conversion to like a snorkel conversion or guppy or anything like that. So it smelled far more pungent, even when he was aboard after the war. Yeah, Redfish pretty much just stayed in her normal configuration, and she was eventually converted to a training submarine and then sunk as a target at the end of her career. So that was his submarine for you. So reportedly, a fleet boat smelled far worse than Blueback. Now, OMSI got the submarine in 1994, and we've theoretically been airing this thing out since then, but you can still smell it. There's no getting rid of the smell, as I mentioned. I suppose the only thing that would smell worse is a German U-boat, because compared to those submarines, a US fleet boat submarine at the time was like a luxury yacht compared to other countries' diesel-electric submarines. So our submarines were like, oh, fancy. Oh yeah, you got air conditioning on your submarines, you know? What? You got a washing machine? You actually have showers that work? Oh my God, you know, well, to an extent, yes. If you read various submarine accounts out there, it's like, yeah, well, you could hardly take a shower, and the air conditioning on submarines on a fleet boat was more of an air conditioning in name only. It wasn't so much for your comfort as it was to be a glorified dehumidifier to prevent humidity, you know, condensation from dripping down into the electrical components and starting a fire. So I have heard from barbell sailors that their submarines, you know, like Blueback, was a little bit more comfortable because the AC, the HVAC system, more or less worked, you know, but like many things, it depends on what the submarine is and where it's going, what it's doing at the time, you know. If we're off like Southeast Asia in balmier territory, it's going to be a little warmer on the submarine. If we're off like the Kamchatka Peninsula, it's going to be a little cooler on board. So it depends on where you are and what you're doing. I guess the only thing that might even smell worse is maybe like a cannery ship or a fishing boat, because she doesn't smell like fish guts. So I guess that's like a bonus or something. Now, if you talk with modern day submariners, there's still a smell to a submarine. Modern day nuclear powered submarines in the US Navy anyway still have auxiliary diesel generators, so they do carry diesel fuel in them. So there's still kind of a hint of diesel fuel, not nearly quite as much probably as like a diesel boat like Blueback, but more specifically, the smell on a nuclear powered submarine, from what I've been told, because I've never been aboard one, they said there's a smell of amine from the CO2 scrubbers. It's a very highly regulated atmosphere, but it has this kind of ammonia smell to it, from my understanding, a nuclear powered submarine. So yeah, just replace one stench with a different stench and combine everything else on the submarine. That's what you got for a nuclear powered submarine, from my understanding. So, but indeed, to any sailor who comes aboard Blueback, they're like, yep, this is a Navy ship, that's for sure. Again, just to reiterate, what you're smelling on Blueback is 31 years worth of submarine. It is the smell of the body odor, the diesel fuel, the tobacco smoke, the food, the lubricants, the oils, the seawater, and everything else on the submarine. We will never get rid of it. Eventually, you might just find it nostalgic when you come on board. Ah, the smell of a submarine. That ode to submarine, you might say. So that's what that stench is when you come aboard Blueback for a tour.